Welcome, everyone. This is the OD doctor, Nancy Zentis, and the OD doctor's assistant, Patti Dammann. And we're so excited to be here today to talk to you about some of your OD business challenges that you're currently facing. Hi, Lydia. Welcome. Thanks for joining. How are you?
How are you?
Good, good. We're Patty and Patsy. This is Lydia. She's in my ODCP class.
Hi, Lydia. I bet you
Hey.
have some challenges you're going to want to share.
Yeah, so let's get started. So how we're going to work it today is that whoever joins us and wants us to help them with a business challenge that they're currently facing, we're going to try to give you some thoughts about that. So Lydia, since you're first here, would you share with us what you would like to ask us? What question you'd like to ask us?
Um, Sure. One of the things I've been thinking about, and actually I've been reading one of the books in the bibliography list, this book about community by Peter Block.
I love that. Yeah.
Um, yeah, but I'm thinking a lot lately about how to use our approaches to help foster and build a sense of community.
All right.
So, yeah, so anything you'd want to offer or share on that topic, I'm really interested in. We do a lot of work with climate surveys and action planning based on the climate surveys. Um, but it occurs to me that this maybe is something in addition to that.
So just tell them a little bit about your organization. And
Sure. Yeah, I work at a national laboratory, and so we're like very much focused on research and development. We have somewhere close to 4,000 people that we work with. Um, so like a highly technical workforce. Um, yeah, and we have core values that we work to promote respect and integrity, teamwork, impact, and safety. So that's a lot of what I focus on, is trying to help us really live those core values.
all right, can we like maybe I'll start and then Patty can add. So we'll do like a little bit of each from each of us. And then so we also have Marcia too. All right. So with the core values are, do you have a process in place that describes how to live the core values in your organization? You
Yeah,
do? Is it
yes.
is it
So we have a
to everybody?
behaviors guide. Yeah, and we have some training classes for each of the core values that have been rolled out.
Okay, great. And then are people held accountable for the core values?
Yep, so in our performance appraisals, we have people describe how they lived out the core values as they did their work each year.
And then how is that communicated to everybody?
Um, Specifically the accountability or just about the core values?
Communicated about what people say in their performance reviews, what they say about living out the core value. How is that communicated?
Yeah, that's interesting. We don't, because it's private. So,
Oh,
yeah, so people's performance reviews are private, and so we don't share out like,
okay. But I mean, they're saying how they practice the core values,
yeah,
right?
we do have shout outs that people can give a shout out to someone. It doesn't have to be someone that works for them, it could be just someone on a team. And that notification goes to the person receiving it and to their supervisor.
Okay.
I
Well,
have a thought. You go, Nance, first, and I have a thought. But
do you want to ask your questions and then we go back to giving our ideas?
yeah, we could continue to do that. I just had this burning thought, though.
Okay. Me
Okay.
too. I was I was thinking about well, if you want to get into ideas. So one thing that we did with a group of people one time to build community to get so everybody kind of understood where everybody was and what, what was important to the organization, what's the mission, what's the mission, what the founders believed in when they first started the company. We do an event called Our Story, and we put it on a timeline. So it can be whatever timeline that you want. You could do it whenever you implemented the culture change, or it could be the history of the organization. And then everybody gets to have cards. And that what they do is they get to write down 3 things that they experienced about the company that supports the culture in their history, 3 or 4, it doesn't matter. And then who are the heroes that really act out the culture, demonstrate the values of the organization? Who are the heroes? And they put that up on the wall. Hopefully, you have a lot of people. They post that up on the wall, and then you go through it with everybody. You could even have everyone come up to the wall and walk through it and read it and kind of live it. And you let people tell stories also. You let them tell stories. You could record that, or you could have somebody writing more sticky notes to put up on the wall. But it's a really interesting way. And then it's a great community building activity that also can become part of your orientation program. You can have celebratory events during, to celebrate different milestones that you've made. And you can just like honor the heroes, and you can also use it as examples, so that if people get discouraged in some of your engagement surveys about different individuals or different things that are going on in the organization, you can kind of go back to that and say, listen, this is what we said was really important. This is what helps us achieve our goals and our vision. And these are the core values and the behaviors that we need to practice and remember. So that's one of my ideas. I love.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to take it down from there because I love that idea of our story. And now I'm thinking about how can we incorporate it into kind of our daily lives. And so many times we have staff meetings, we have these informal gatherings. And for like a staff meeting, for example, I always think about when I was involved with this one organization, we used to have safety briefings, and every single meeting you would have to start off with, the safety rule of the day and how that incorporated into your daily life. So I think that with the values as well, even having someone in rotating that, picking one of the values and actually talking about how I live out that value, how my peers live out that value, and how we can support one another living out those values. So making it part of our being. So
Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking about.
it's a great idea. And we did that some years ago, which is the advantage of being in an organization for a long time. We did that some years ago specific to safety. And I think it really did change how that was how people felt about that. Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you.
I love the community building activities that Peter Block mentions. One of our friends, Jeff Boyd, did a presentation one time it was live for South Florida ODN. And he had some activities that started off where you would interview somebody that you didn't know and share 3 things about yourself. And I remember meeting this lady, and I became really good friends with her. And so there were some things we had in common, and then there are a couple things we didn't have in common. So it was kind of interesting. So they said, pick somebody that you wouldn't know, that maybe you don't know. And then what we did is we moved into a larger group. And then we had another activity in that larger group where we, began to learn more about each other by asking each other questions. So it could be anything like, where did you go to school? Where did you used to live? What are some of your strongest memories of being brought up? And then after we did that, so then we kind of all bonded. And then after that, we went larger to a whole group and started to just go and kind of like ping pong off of each other and start to just try to meet as many people as you could, almost like you would if it was like a, what am I trying to say? Speed dating. That the end debrief, what did you learn? What did you experience? How do you feel about this activity? So that's something we actually did in an, activity that was from Peter Block's, one of the workshops he presented on community building.
Thanks, these are great ideas.
You. So we have done some work in this area on culture change. And when people are over, difficult to um, be, I mean, actually leading for the leaders, actually being involved in the process because they didn't think it was their job. So it's pretty interesting how it was delegated to an OD team to implement the culture change process and the behaviors. So we can feel your your concern about it. We
Yeah,
understand.
yeah. And just, coming out of COVID and just things have changed, right? Um, we recently did start a project coming out of a psychological safety assessment where we're trying to build a peer network of managers so they can be exchanging best practices and talking to each other and supporting each other. And we've had things like that, but never quite like this, never like around a role. So, and I was surprised me that they were actually, one of the things they said is they were grateful we were doing this because they appreciated the opportunity to talk to other people. And they felt that it really, in the current environment, it required some kind of structure to enable them to do that.
You
Yeah, I
know,
love that.
the
Yeah. I mean,
iceberg theory, it actually came from Kurt Lewin, the OD, the pioneer in OD. But you know what I'm talking about? Like the cultural values and the norms are the things that are stated visibly, but the most of the culture is below the iceberg. And those are the how people get things done, how they really get things done. So that's also an interesting conversation to have. And maybe I like your idea of peer mentoring for not only just supervisors or managers, but maybe even employee to employee, so that when new employees come in or people are kind of struggling, on how to influence others or how to get things done, they understand what are the cultural behaviors or norms that are unsaid or unseen?
Yeah,
and just to pick up on what Nancy said, and I'm going to kind of talk about why we do this, it's always remembering the human interaction piece is absolutely critical. And particularly when you're working in a technical organization, it's easy for that to go to the, kind of the side and people don't pay attention to it. And yet when we, in our roles, we recognize that and we put these interventions and these initiatives together, where people have the opportunity, they're so grateful for that. And I think that sounds like what you experience, Lydia. So that's the outcome that we get with that, is that people really appreciate it. They don't necessarily know how to do it themselves. And that's why we're an OD, and that's why we're the helpers. We see that, we recognize that, and we have all this background, whether it be the iceberg theory, Edgar Schein, Peter Block, Kurt Lewin. I mean, there's just one after the other. We can take that information and we make it practical for them. So that's what we try to do, practical and relatable. So that's my 2 cents on that.
yeah, thank
Well,
you.
yes, we have Marcy. So Marcy, do you have a question that you have for the OD doctors? If you would kindly unmute. How are
I
you today?
don't I don't actually have a question. I was just kind of coming in to listen. Today I'm taking the certification class right now, so I thought I was like, oh, I'm gonna come in and listen. I didn't have any particular questions today.
Tell us a little bit about what you do and what's going on in your world.
So right now I'm a training specialist in the federal government, so I'm doing that in leadership development and doing a little bit of OD work, but just kind of understanding that all of leadership development comes from that side of OD and really needing to understand what the root problems are in order to understand how we can develop our leadership programs better. So
Yeah, that was going to be my question. What are some of the challenges that you're experiencing today with leadership development?
just making sure that we're staying relevant and that we are able to still fulfill our mission while we are having to pivot and actually kind of take away so many of the things that we focus on, as far as even just I'm actually kind of glad I'm taking this call on my personal phone. Even just we were on a meeting earlier today, and some of our courses involve group coaching, and just even having to take away the name coaching, and how can we rebrand coaching into something else when it's still coaching, but we have to rebrand that. And so those are just some of the challenges that we're facing right now.
Sounds like a lot of disruption that you're going through, and that's
Yes.
many, and not only government, but we experience it in lots of organizations. And one of the things that we do in OD is we deal with that disruption. Anyway, Nancy, I'll let you take over from here.
Oh, appreciate you sharing that with us too, because I bet a lot of people who will listen to this will also, be thinking about how are they going to rebrand, relabel, and, be able to still offer a viable service to those, especially leadership development, to those who need leadership development to be able to lead people and be effective as a leader. So thank you, Marcy, for sharing that with us. All right, Patsy, I think you said there's a couple more questions in the chat.
I did, and I just wanted to give an idea to Marcy because this was something that we did. We called it real-time leadership. And so that was our way of kind of rebranding our coaching. And that real-time leadership is what's happening right now and how can I help connect you to some solutions that you're having some challenges. So yeah, we had some questions that came in from several people that couldn't attend today. And one of the questions that it's a current participant in one of our certification programs, she was asking, what do I do if I've got an initiative that's going on right now, and I have some of the senior leaders that seem to be on the opposite side of the initiative and are not supporting it. And then we have a majority of the leaders are supporting the initiative. But what do we do to kind of circumvent those people that seem to they're not taking an active role in being against the initiative, but they're certainly not rowing in the boat in the right direction. So what would you suggest to this participant that's experiencing this?
I can start and then Patty can add. So what we recommend is when you're working with your client, supposedly the leader or someone that owns the business challenge, right? And it's something that should be tied to the strategic plan, something that is one part of their goals, not just something that someone thinks is a really good idea, but it really specifically is tied to the strategic plan. So you talk to the leader about that, like tell me where this fits in the strategic plan and what goals will it be aligned to? And then ask like, all right, who on your team, needs to be involved in it, and really have the position that you as the consultant are supporting that team and helping them be successful with launching that particular business challenge and working on that. So that is one where gaining accountability. So the leader's role is really to get their team to be responsible and be accountable for, because it's going to be one of their objectives for ensuring that this is going to be successful. And so I did have a couple times where the leaders didn't take ownership of it. They didn't feel well, one reason was they really didn't know what the goals were. Their goals were, they're new to the organization. So, and they weren't clear. So there was lack of clarity on that. The other thing is that they didn't really have a strategic plan in place, or it wasn't updated. So that was another thing we identified that had to be worked on, during the time that we were working on a project. But I would work, and I'm going to use a process that comes from a whole systems change. And that is where you're really helping the senior leader and the senior leader team to gain agreement and work as a team on launching the initiative. So your first upfront work is talking to the leader about your approach and how you want to handle it and what your expectations are. And then once you gain that agreement and get that insight, you and the leader come up with a set of questions that you can go and interview his team or his or her team on how, what their thoughts are on this business challenge that you're going to be working on with them, and then what their expectations are. So you go back and then you go back to the senior, you tell them, well, I'm going to, generically give the senior leader your thoughts, but it will be because it's going to be in a feedback report. No names will be mentioned. And then what I want you to do is for you and the senior leader to get together and then like combine your ideas and your thoughts and come to agreement. So that's usually a facilitated session that you have with the team. And until you really can't be successful until you get them working as a team, which a lot of times senior leaders don't realize they are part of a team. They just see themselves as a leader. And then once you get that buy-in, then you start to move out into the rest of the organization, involve those folks and start to collect your data and get that information on how the need for change, what their thoughts are, and what you want to try to find the root cause. So what are the root causes that are preventing you from being successful, and how do they think that you can get there? So that would be my recommendation. I mean, that's what's, part of organization development and the action research model and whole systems change.
Thank you, Nancy. So I'm just going to add a few things because sometimes I kind of interpreted that they were already out of the gate and they had done some of this work already. And now, as they get into interventions and implementation, the leaders or some of the leaders are having cold feet, they're showing resistance. So, two things I always think about. Number one, I like to work with the resistors. To me, those are the ones that I want to have the conversations with. I want to find out why they're resisting. I want to be able to get them to identify some of the things that would help them get on board with that initiative. So I like, because I know that the champions are great. They're going to be there. Working with those resistance and finding out what the issues are sometimes a great way to get through them. So build those relationships with those resistors. The other thing is see if you can find some commonalities. So maybe there are some commonalities and some of the things that within that particular issue that they're dealing with. So maybe they don't like one thing, but they like another thing, and try to build on that. The other thing is, and this is, I think it's so critical because I always think of an example when one of my colleagues was tasked with doing a whole competency model with a big organization, a big metal organization, scrap metal. And that president wanted a competency. They wanted everyone to develop competencies. She got resistance from one person, and no matter what she tried, she was against, she would run into this brick wall. What ended up happening was she did go back to the senior leader, the CEO, and said, I can't do anything more. And that senior leader, because she had worked with him, he wanted it. That senior leader was the one that said, no, you have to do this. And if you don't do it, we're holding back all your bonuses. So, it's not the, it's not the most desirable, but sometimes you have to get strong on things. And that's what that particular leader did. So that's my take on that.
Thanks, Patty. Well, welcome, Christina. Thank you for joining us. We just wondered, did you have a question for us that you want answered?
Dr. Zentis. I did. Thank you. We are, I'm have the good fortune of getting to participate in one of the certification programs right now. And I've been grappling with a little bit of a challenge. We're trying to figure out the best way to welcome a couple of new folks into our organization. They'll be starting within the next couple of weeks. And we have an organization that for quite a long time was primarily composed of folks with a very long tenure. And so we're wanting to figure out the best way to look holistically at all of our team members and move forward in a way that promotes a culture for everybody to be able to participate in, and hopefully alleviate any kind of old guard, new guard tensions. And so wanting to be planful about this and thinking about what tools or approaches would be best to facilitate.
Great. I can share something, and then I'm Dr. Nancy Zentis, and then Patty Dammann also, she can add to, she can also add her thoughts. And so here's something that I actually lived, and I just thought it was so amazing. I worked for a company. They were an older company. They hadn't had many new people or women join their organization. So, but they had a culture of mentoring. So the leaders agreed that they would be mentors to the other managers whenever we were working on a project or whether we were new to the organization. So they had a new employee program where when I joined, I went out and I met everybody that I was going to report to, who I would help, right, in my role, and then everybody that would support me. So for about 6 months, I was on the road going to different locations and within the division and meeting everyone and asking them questions. And I learned I wasn't in manufacturing. I didn't have a background, but by the end of that 6 months, I had learned enough that I rewrote the employee orientation program. So, and then they also said that when whatever projects that I was working on, they recommended that I ask one or two people to be a mentor for the project. And they had the right to refuse if they were too busy, but they had to recommend someone. So it was just a wonderful culture of mentoring. And I got to meet all the senior leaders, help them in whatever way I could. They were very open to me, and it just really jump started my career as an HR professional in a manufacturing environment.
Okay, just to add to that, what I was thinking about was some sort of a role clarification exercise where we're all together and we identify each of the roles that we play in this organization. And then we get into the interdependency piece, and that would be what I need from you, what you need from me. So we go through this process. It's a silent activity at first, everyone working by themselves. And then we facilitate it. And the discussions that come out of that are just absolutely amazing. And we kind of throw on the table what the needs of everyone are. And then we start recognizing that we're here to support one another. And it kind of gets away from the new guard, old guard type of situation that you might be dealing with. Great to see you, Christina.
And
Thank you,
another thing
Patty.
that you reminded me of, Patty, is leadership, if they're leaders, new leader integration, where you would meet with the new leader, and you'd have the new leader, tell you a little bit about their philosophy and their approach. Then you would go into the team that they'll be leading and ask the team, what are your expectations of the leader? What would you like to tell them if you could? What things might you want changed or improved? Those kinds of things. Then you would let them know you're going to go back and confidentially share that with the leader, and then have the leader come in and introduce themselves, and then have and then kind of talk to you about what how their approach would be as the new leader. And that's also a really excellent approach, because instead of going in making all these changes, they get a chance to meet the people that are gonna report to them, hear what their side of what things that are going on that they might need to know, and also kind of get a feel for what's going on in their department. And it helps to build a much stronger relationship with the new leader.
Nancy, we are spot on. I had jotted that down. It's an amazing, I've new managers, assimilation, new leader. That is excellent. That's another great approach. So glad you brought that up.
That helpful, Christina?
It's very helpful, and I'm actually over here quietly taking lots and lots of notes. I think these are all going to be really helpful for us and very applicable. I just appreciate these are all tools that we can and approach that can implement really easily and readily here.
Right. We appreciate the questions. We love talking about this.
Please feel free to contact us, individually, and we are willing to, share with you. We can have a conversation about it. Lydia, so do you have any questions for us? Any more questions?
That the one about community was really the big one that had come to my mind, but I was also wondering, because I was looking through the reading list in the certification class, and it just made me curious too, like, of the books listed there, do any of you have like a favorite that you would recommend? Like if I was going to prioritize my reading and kind of start working my way through, I was just curious about where you would start.
There's so many. I would pick the book that would be more related to any project that you're working on. But the one I really love, and it just gives me, because I'm a fan of Kurt Lewin, I'm a Lewinian, and it's this book by Gilmore Crosby to tell you, like, if you want to improve your OD, like, the way that you influence people, he really talks about how, and what Kurt Lewin was thinking, what his approach was, how he interacted with people. I really love that book. But I also like that NTL book too. That's on OD. That's also, but a lot of times the way the books are written, it's just so long and really talks about the whole experience with the client, and it's their experience. It's kind of hard to read through, so I'd speed read it if I were you. That's my philosophy.
I'm going to throw out one book that I absolutely love, and that's Humble Inquiry by Edgar Schein. It gets to the heart of things and how we can communicate with people and just recognize where they are. Yeah, it's my all-time favorite. Yay. It's a beautiful book. It really is. And we actually saw him on a panel. And one of the things he talked about, someone asked him the question, what would you tell your younger self now? I think he was 90 years old. He said, focus on the relationship. And that's what Humble Inquiry is all about, that relationship.
I think Vetus had a
He did.
thing
Yeah.
to share. Yeah.
I would love that.
Vetus?
Vetus had two things. Vetus, you can definitely talk.
Vetus works with IOD, and he's located in Ghana, Africa. He's an OD professional, but he also manages our IT function. So
Vetus talked about two things, just to bring it up. He talked about for new team members to get into a healthy culture. He taught and psychological safety, the animal likeness exercise.
good one.
Yeah.
Does he mean the owl, the lamb, the tiger or bear, and the ostrich? That one? It doesn't really matter because
He's coming in. Vetus is coming in.
Hi. Okay. So I talked about the animal likeness where every team member kind of draws an animal that he likens to himself to and gives certain characteristics or traits that he aligns with. When you facilitate this in the team, especially for new team members, it kind of opens up and lets them get to know everybody a little bit, a bit of insight into everybody that makes them feel more comfortable with the people around. For example, I know you're a cat. I know you're a tiger. I know you're an eagle. So it kind of connects, especially when we have likeness in common.
that's a great one. And also, Vetus mentioned, don't forget to check out our giodn.org website. If you're a member, which I think all of you are, there are over 65 tools that are downloadable that you can use to facilitate a team meeting anytime that you need it. So I don't know if you realize that. You have to log in though. All right. Well, this was great. This was our first session using this approach. How did you all, how did you all feel about this session in this way, where we gave you our thoughts about and answered your questions?
I really liked it. It made me think in advance about what I would want to hear more from experts about. So I think it kind of like there was a double benefit that I was thinking ahead of time critically about what all I have going on, but then also being able to hear from all of you.
Thank you, Lydia. What about you, Christina?
I just really appreciate being able to sort of have some external reflection, obviously from outside of our organization, but also I know that the three of you have so much experience and expertise to bring, and our judgment and our ability to generate solutions can sometimes get clouded by either the work that we're doing with an external client or just our internal experience as an OD professional. And so I really appreciate the sort of the clarity, the thoughtfulness, and being able to tie all these things back directly to very specific resources so that we can get to implementing solutions and obviously doing the diagnostics first before we jump to solutions, but being able to think holistically about this and have reflections from three wonderful and seasoned professionals. And Patsy, I have to say, ever since participating in your session, I have that Panic at the Disco song on replay when I'm at work. So.
Oh, thanks everyone so much. We really
Really appreciate it.
We went over a little bit, but that's okay. And we look forward to seeing you in our classes. So take care. Tell everyone that, next month we do this every month. And it's at the same time, the same day of the month. So I think we're going to continue on with offering, answering your questions and sharing with you our knowledge. So thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye. I think the live streaming still